1803, approximately 75 Western Africans, many of the Ibo bloodline in modern-day Nigeria, arrived in Savannah, Georgia, aboard a slave ship called the Wanderer. They were sold off for $100 each to slave masters John Cooper and Thomas Spalding to work on plantations on nearby St. Simon's Island. The slaves were packed like cargo under the deck of a coastal trading vessel, the schooner York, that was to take them to St. Simon's. However, as the voyage progressed, the slaves rebelled against their captors, hijacked the ship, and drowned all the masters on board. They then managed to dock the ship in Dunbar Creek, at what is now known as Ibo Landing. After docking the ship, the Ibo people, directed by their high chief, marched ashore while chanting and singing of their native home, wearing chains binding them together as they committed the largest known mass suicide of enslaved persons. Of the 75 Africans who walked into the water, only 13 bodies were ever recovered. Some were recaptured and sold into slavery, while others remained missing. Much of what we know today of the mass suicide at Ibo Landing comes from the written account of Roswell King, a white slave master who, along with another white onlooker, recovered some of those drowned bodies. The Ibo people's actions in 1803 ignited the first of a series of major resistance from Africans, especially those bound to slavery. Overthrowing their captors and choosing suicide over enslavement was received by lots of African Americans at the time as the final call to freedom. Some literature refers to the Ibo people's mutiny as the first freedom march in the history of America. Ibo Landing birthed two versions of legend, the Flying African and the Africans who walked across the water. Toni Morrison wrote possibly the most famous work inspired by the Flying African, her 1977 masterpiece, Song of Solomon. The 2018 film Black Panther is one of the most recent notable works to reference Ibo Landing when Killmonger says, quote, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage." The history of the mass suicide at Dunbar Creek, known as Ibo Landing, both in place and event, endures through oral histories, particularly for the Gullah Geechee community. The descendants of the determined, self-emancipated enslaved Africans have resided on the sea islands of the southeastern United States for generations. In September of 2002, the St. Simon's African American community organized a 2-day commemoration of the event at Ibo Landing. The organizers also led a procession to the site of the mass suicide, with 75 attendees from Nigeria, Brazil, Belize, Haiti, and different states from across the United States. And if you didn't know, now you know.